So welcome everyone. Today we have a special day with Mrs. Karen White and CTA Transformational Tuesdays. Karen White, she's a master certified coach. She's a mentor coach. She has been coaching for about 17 years, following a career in the corporate world for 20 years. She had key leadership roles spanning strategic and operational business areas. She is a director of training for the Ontological Coaching Institute, and she is the regional director of leadership embodiment in Africa. And today we are actually excited to listen to Karen about the wisdom of the body um, in life and coaching. Okay, Karen, we are listening to you.
Thank you, Mahmoud, and welcome everyone, wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening. It's really lovely to be here. And firstly, I would like to thank Coach Transformational Academy for making these sessions available to everyone. I think that it's a remarkable offering, and I've seen some of your other guests, and it's really wonderful to be part of this community. And a very special thank you to everyone who has joined. You know, one of the things I think we don't often think about, but when we choose to spend an hour somewhere, we're choosing to give up an hour of our life. So much gratitude to all of you for being here. And today we have an hour, and when I looked at all my slides, I thought, oh my goodness, there's a lot in it. And I really don't, it's not a one-way, this isn't going to be a one-way exploration, because I think when talking about the role of the body and engaging the body, it's about exploring and experimenting together. So perhaps in addition to what Mahmoud was sharing about me, my fascination with the body started many, many years ago when I was in the corporate world. And I spent about 10 years doing yoga, and then did a yoga teacher's course as well, because I realized that there was something about working with, in, and through the body that was very powerful and wasn't easy to name necessarily. And it was actually before yoga, I think, was mainstream certainly in Western culture. When I started my coach training, what I realized was the power of the body, but not a whole lot was focused on the body. So it was much more about cognitive ability, even emotional capacity, but not actually how do you work with the body. And so that led me down the road of connecting with Wendy Palmer, who's the founder of Leadership Embodiment, and extending really what I'd been learning in yoga and growing that. And then following on from that, building on that, was working with ontological coaching, which I think is a wonderful amalgamation of working with the body in addition to language and emotion. So today, what I thought I would do, if you'll bear with me, I'm going to offer you some experiences before we even get into a positioning on the body, which I will do. And what I'm hoping we'll also have time for is for you to actually have an experience in working with the body and to experiment and explore and see what happens. So I hope that sounds like a good use of our time together. So I'm going to, I'm very pleased to tell you that I do not have too many slides. But really it's about how do we access the wisdom of the body, which in terms of I think the way we are socialized and educated is almost counterintuitive. It's like, leave your body at the door, bring the rest of you, and good luck with that, everyone, because our bodies are with us all the time, and our brain and body are not separate. So what I'd like to invite you to do by way of starting is to, if you have a pen and paper ready, I'd like to invite you to actually write about this. And for you to take a couple of minutes to write down what you are aware of is going on for you right now in your thoughts, your emotions, and your body and your physiology. And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. Feel free to keep writing if you haven't yet finished. And if in the meantime, I'd love to hear in the chat box what happened for you in taking just a couple of minutes to notice what was happening in your thoughts, your emotions, and your physiology. Yeah, fantastic. I'm going to just pick up on what a couple of people have said as people keep posting. So Joshna, you were saying feeling preoccupied mentally, and that might seem like a not so good thing. And I would say that's fantastic noticing, because it's in the noticing that we start to have some choice. And Donna, fantastic, created awareness and made me present, engaged and anticipating a great presentation. Claudia, things you weren't aware of came up. So just to start to see how just becoming more aware of certain aspects of our way of being all of a sudden start to open up pathways. And Sandra, I love what you were saying. It's easy to focus on thinking, thoughts, difficult to listen to what the body has to say. And so thank you. I planted you in the webinar. And now what I'd like to ask is for Soham to put up the poll. There's a poll that I'd like to check in, picking up on the experience you've just had. So I just want to, is that possible, Soham? There we go. So if you could respond to that poll and let's see what comes back. I'm just giving people a couple more moments to vote. So let me share the screen because I just realized only I can see this. So this is what the figures are looking like. And I'm going to keep going. What's interesting is that it's fantastic that there are obviously a lot of people online who are actually able to tune into what's going on in their body. And for many of us and many people, it takes some time to notice what's happening in our body. Even though if you think about it, if we get a fright, we don't go, oh, I got a fright. It happens in our body first, right? And yet the way we are culturalized and socialized is to actually ignore what's happening in our body. And for those of you who said difficult and it was a stretch for me, I think there are lots of people who do not automatically or don't easily have access to their body. So I'm going to close this poll. So what I'd like to do next is I'd like to share a thought with you, and that is, we've done the poll. I wrote an article some years back, and this is an excerpt from the article. And so for many of us, paying attention to our body and biology has at best, let me stop sharing that. For many of us, paying attention to our body and biology has at best been neglected and at worst ignored and repressed, often leaving us feeling like we are deficient in some way. So a lack of a bodily sense, if you like. And what I'd like to offer is we're as much our body and biology as we are our intellect, our emotions, our relationships, our culture, and spirituality. And when we integrate these elements, we become more functional and skillful and are able to live our lives more choicefully and meaningfully. And I would add also with more wisdom, more compassion, and more ease. So I just want to stop there for a minute and check if anyone would like to make a comment or ask a question at this point. I don't want to just, it's not just about me speaking all the way. So let me just check with you. Shall I keep going? All right. Okay, so let's keep going. And what I'd like to do today, and it really is a bit of a whiz around, let me keep, is I'm going to give you a very brief overview of our, an approach to looking at who and how we are as human beings. So our way of being. And then I'd like to spend a little bit of time positioning why the body matters for learning and change, and just give you a bit of a perspective on that. And by the way, what I'm sharing is not rocket science. And I think it's often overlooked. And one thing that I'd like to offer you from the get-go is why the body matters for learning and change is because the body is a shortcut. And I'll give you an example of working with a client that where she was really able to grasp that and the shift that it made for her. And then what I'd like to do, I'm going to see how time goes, is I would like to give you an opportunity to have an experience with a partner. So in a breakout room. And that's about 10 or 12 minutes. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to get there, because really it's in the experience of it that I think you will be able to see the value and the potential power of working with the body. And then the last few minutes, feedback, questions, and close. So that's sort of the rest of the runway for today. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time positioning a few things, starting with the way of being model. And there's a whole lot that sits in the background, but I didn't want it to be a whole content heavy hour together. I wanted it to be much more of a conversation and an opportunity for exploration. So the two above, language and emotions, get a lot of press, right? So language, we are born into language. Language is ever present with us. And in a way, we take language for granted. And what often we think about language as describing reality. In every moment of every day, we are generating language. We are generating reality through language. And it's the language that we use with others. So you received an invitation to attend today, and hey presto, here we are. We could all be somewhere different. We are generating language for ourselves in terms of the way we speak to ourselves about ourselves. Listening is a crucial part of language, and to be influential actually requires astute and acute listening, I would say. And that's where coaches can play a really valuable role. So language is key. And then emotions, our emotions inform the action that we will take. So if I'm feeling happy and joyous and excited, then I might decide to play around with my kids, rather than, oh, you should be doing X and Y. Whereas if I'm feeling anxious or tired or flat, then that's going to inform the action that I take as well. And all of this is happening within the body. So although I've got those three circles as separate, it's all happening simultaneously. And our body is an embodiment of who we are and what is possible for us. It informs the way we experience the world. It informs the way we experience ourselves. And it informs what we're able and not able to do at any given point in time. So I just want to check if there's anything in the chat before I go on. Okay. So no, so far so good. So those are all three really important areas for us to focus on. And as I've said, I think the body is the area that is most neglected. And in reality, if you think about it, we are told to, in our society, we're often told to ignore our body. So we go to school, we're told to sit still, we're told not to express ourselves. I remember one of the coaching courses I did when I was speaking with my hands, and I got feedback, you shouldn't speak with your hands. And I was like, but that's part of my expression. For me, it was such a moment where, like, actually, that's my body. What you're saying is I've got to hold my body in a certain way, which I didn't accept that, by the way. And I think we each have a unique way of embodying of embodiment and what we choose to do with our bodies. So let me see so I'd love to know from you, if you have a look at these 4 pictures, and you just, so this top one is 1, 2, 3, 4. If you wouldn't mind putting in the chat box, what is possible for, choose one of them. So choose any one of them, 1, 2, 3, or 4, and what is possible and what is not possible for those individuals in the stance and the way that they're standing or sitting. Let's have a look. Okay, so if you could say, in addition to sort of choosing one, what would you say is possible or impossible? So let's say you said, I choose 1. What would you say about 1? What's possible for that person? And if you chose 2, doesn't matter, anyone. Three can dive in and can't fly, love it. 1, 4, so let's have a look. I'm going to just look for patterns, not try and repeat everything. So in general, 1 and 4, you can see that it's about possibilities. They're open to some things in the world, open to things being different. Whereas 2 and 3 can't see what's out there, focus downward, can dive in and can't fly. 2 and 3 seem to be gloom and doom. Absolutely. And so for me, this is a really good example of how what we are embodying determines what we can pay attention to and what is ignored. And the other thing that I think is really important is the body. Often we think of the body in terms of static, and actually our body is dynamic. And what that opens up is incredible choice. Incredible choice for us to make a shift in our bodies and to experience something different. And all of us actually, just in looking at these pictures, can see that. So how fascinating is that? So let me just check with you again, if you could give me a bit of a thumbs up. How's this going? Anything that's not working for you? So I don't just steamroll us forward. Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm getting thumbs up. Good. And if it's not working for anyone, feel free to stop. All right, I'm going to keep going. what I don't think I mentioned, I can't remember to be perfectly honest, is a little later, after I've gone through this next section, you're going to be invited to go into breakout rooms, and you're going to have an opportunity. One person, one of the pair is going to have an opportunity to share a challenge that they've been having, not the detail of it, but actually to have an experience with the body. So as I keep going, what I'd like to ask you to do is to think about an issue that you're finding a little challenging. It could be a relationship. It could be a sense of feeling a bit stuck with yourself. So anything like that, that you're going to be willing to put forward. You're not going to share any detail, but there might be an opportunity. You have a 50% chance of sharing it with your partner. So I just wanted to flag that so I don't pounce that on you. Okay. So the next thing I want to mention is my son and I were having a chat some time ago, and it just sort of struck me. And so I said to him, you know, we make our habits and then our habits make us. So if you think about when we are born and we learn how to walk, we learn how to crawl and we learn how to walk, our bodies automatically are fluid and spontaneous. And then over time, what happens is we learn through our family of origin, through our society, through the things that we engage in the world, we learn habits, and they become part of us, and we embody those habits. And so this is this notion of we make our habits and then our habits make us, and they become automatic. And so a shout out to practices. And a practice is something we do intentionally, regularly, and repeatedly to develop and cultivate new habits and states, and over time, an expanded way of being, who and how we are being in the world. That's what I mean by way of being. And practices include every aspect of our being. However, for lasting change, practices that are embodied, that are congruent with our language and our emotion, are the ones that stick. And working at the level of the body can enable this exponentially. And so before we carry on, I'm going to invite you into a practice, and I'm going to do it with you. And this is a practice that comes from leadership embodiment. I was chatting about Wendy Palmer. And this is a basic practice that I find to be extraordinarily powerful. And so before we start, I'd like you to just take a moment and to for yourself reflect on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being stressed and 10 being very relaxed. Where would you place yourself? What number would you give for yourself right now? And just note that for yourself. I'm going to do the same. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite us to go through a practice. This is a centering practice, and it's based on Wendy's work. I bring my own flavor to it. So what I'd like to invite you to do is not to look at the screen. So I want you to disconnect from the screen. I'm actually going to do the same. And to make sure that wherever you're sitting, that you can sit in a lovely, dignified, uplifted posture. And I find that if I move away from the chair, that can be really, really helpful. So just to make sure that you've got that nice uplifted posture, and then to follow along with my voice. If you're able to keep your eyes open, that's great. And as I say, disconnect from the screen. You're going to have a screen break. It's an ad break. Okay, so let's take a moment. We're going to inhale, getting a little bit taller, as if our heads can move naturally up to the sky, and then a longer, slow exhale, softening down the front. And let's do that again. So we're going to inhale, uplift. You could even imagine space between your vertebrae. And then a longer, slower exhale, softening down the front. And let's for good measure, do that once more. So nice inhale, getting a bit taller. And as you exhale, thinking of someone or something that makes you smile. And now what I'd like to invite you to do is to pay attention to the space all around your body. So an arm's distance in front of you, just becoming aware of the space there. An arm's distance behind you. So if you've got eyes in the back of your head, on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, above your head, and below your feet. This is your peripersonal space. You could even give it a color or a texture. And then with that space enveloping you, with your next exhalation, allowing your jaw and shoulders to release down a little bit and relax. And then inviting a little more ease. If there were a little more ease in your being right now, where would you notice it? Just sensing into that for a moment. And what I'd like to invite you back into the room now, and if you could just notice, going back to that scale of 1 to 10, so if 1, you felt quite stressed, and 10, you felt very relaxed, and you had placed yourself at a 4, what's the number you would give for yourself now? And is it different? Well, I see that there's some hot numbers coming in. So 9, 8, 9, 9. And I don't know what it was before, but I'm going to imagine that for many of you, there was a good shift to being more relaxed, more at ease. Would that be a fair assumption to make? And again, if I could get some thumbs up or thumbs down, if it's not a fair assumption. Okay. Getting thumbs up. Cool. So that's what I mean by practice, is that something happened, even if there was a slight shift. So if it shifted from a 4 to a 5, that's a change. And that change in the body allows for a shift in our perception. And so that's what I mean about having practices that can support us in developing a way of being for ourselves and developing our capacity. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going, and we've just done that. And so Harm has these slides, which he will make sure is available to you. That's the centering practice. That's really what we did. We did a breath, we balanced our energy, we relaxed, and we went through a bit of an inquiry. And I just want to talk, I want to bring it all together now in terms of a rationale for working with, in, and through the body. So our bodies are the slowest and yet the most profound, has the most profound effect for change. And don't take my word for it, but if you think about learning something new, that's an embodiment. You can watch someone dancing, for example, and you can think, oh, that's such a cool move, and I'll definitely be able to do that. Get on the dance floor and realize, oh, not so much. So while our intellect, our heads get it, in language we think we can do it, our bodies are on a different timing. And so we often think, oh no, we'll just keep moving with the conceptual stuff, because in a way it's easier. And again, it's part of our socialization. And what I'd like to offer is the nervous system And I think neuroscience is fantastic and offers a great deal, but I think it in a way can continue to position the brain and the body as separate, which I don't think is so helpful. So for me, the nervous system, which includes the brain and the body, is what it's about. And the reason why it's so important is because it's through our nervous system that we perceive the world. And it's through our nervous system that we act and behave in the world, and that change can happen. So not attending to the body and not attending to the nervous system neglects a huge area of learning for us and a huge source of wisdom. And our nervous system, so there's some cues we can actually start to use. So like the centering practice, in fact, I'll get there the other way. So our postural alignment, our muscle tension, and our breathing are all a reflection of our nervous system in action. And as I said earlier, it's dynamic. So by attuning to that and making small adjustments, we can actually start to create a shift in our perception. And what happens over time is all of this becomes habitual. And as I said, we make our habits and then our habits make us. And if we don't pay attention to the body, we can't create any shift or change in the body. And so the first thing is becoming aware of our habits, recognizing the habits that are useful for us and ways of our ways of embodying that actually help us. And then having practices that can support us to have a body that allows us to be at its most resourceful. And you can see it's an ongoing, and you can enter into this in any area. So you can look at practices, you can start to tune into habits, you can simply bring awareness to postural alignment, what's going on with my muscle tension right now. And a very quick coaching story is I was working with someone last week, and for her it was about confidence. She's entering into a new work, which is actually as a coach. And what she's realizing is that the way her life has been set up is she's normally sits behind a screen, and now it's about engaging with people, and she was lacking in confidence. And so we started the conversation and we started off exploring what was happening in terms of confidence, the connections she was making, what made it important for her to shift. We had a look at some of the emotions, and I was quite surprised when I asked her about her emotional state. I was expecting her to have some anxiety, and it was interesting because for her there was quite a lot of sadness present in her lacking in confidence and what it meant for her. And then I said to her, well, would you like to explore in the body? And she said, sure. And so this was the shortest part of our conversation. It was probably about 10 minutes. And I said, what do you notice when you are lacking in confidence? And she said, oh no, I'm immediately hunching. And she kind of pulled herself in and she said, Karen, I make myself smaller. And now that's happening in language. It's not just happening in language. It's also what's happening in her body. And just for her to start to notice that was remarkable. And then I said to her, we got up together and I said to her, okay, I said, if you were to shift, like what shift would you make? And it was fantastic to see her. She doesn't know about some of the stuff which I had in the background. She did a Wonder Woman pose. She stuck her hands on her hips and she got a smile on her face, and she said, I've opened up here. So she opened up the space. Oh, she did this all on her own. And she said, and Karen, I feel quite mischievous. And it was fantastic. So I said to him, well, what does that open up for you? And she said, immediately I start to connect with a part of myself that I haven't paid attention to. And anyway, and we then spoke about how she could practice this. So you can see, so if we go back, I should not have stopped sharing this. So if we go back, you can see that her nervous system in action, right? In terms of her making herself smaller, the language that goes with it. If we looked at her postural alignment, more hunched, muscle tension, she was pulling herself in, making herself smaller, and she wasn't noticing her breathing. And that had become habitual. So it had become part of her way of being. And then we played with that, and all of a sudden she broke that habit, but it's not going to necessarily be automatic. So we looked at the shift, she practiced something different, and then we spoke about, okay, so how can you keep practicing this new way of being? What can you engage in on an ongoing basis that's going to have an impact on your nervous system in a different way? So let me again see how we are for time and check in with you. Again, if you could put in the chat box anything that's any insights, any awareness, any questions. So I'm not going to read out what people are saying. Please read in the chat box yourself what people are posting. Brenda, what I would offer is we're always practicing something, and what something for us to consider is what we are practicing in terms of our embodiment, is that giving us the results that we want? Is that giving us the emotional state that we want? And so that's the first inquiry, because we can't change what we don't notice. And then once we are able to recognize that, to start to identify a way of shifting that can support us with what it is we do want for our lives. And over time, that can then become an embodiment. So I'm hoping that gives you just a little taste of what's possible. And feel free to take yourself off mute if you do want to comment, and no pressure. Okay, lovely. I see you've answered in the chat. Okay. So is everyone up for a bit of an experiment and an exploration? Because we've got, I see 17 minutes technically left, and I'd like to invite you into an experience.
So I would like to ask you first, Karen, I have a question myself. When we are in a coaching session, sometimes we ask the clients, what are you experiencing in your body? Or what are your sensations right now? And the answer is nothing. So that happens a lot, actually. And specifically with some clients who they live in their minds and they give you only ideas and thoughts. So just what do you think about that?
It's a really good point, Mahmoud. And I think that this is where us having an understanding and awareness of the body is so important, because asking clients to tune in to a sensation, and it's something that they've never done before, they're unlikely to even have a vocabulary. And so for us to have a vocabulary, for us to be aware of the body, so perhaps instead of asking sensations, you could say, well, don't worry, that's fine. What do you notice is going on in with your breathing? How are you holding your body? And you can actually cue them. And in fact, that's where I was going to go next, is give you an opportunity to have an exploration with that and to see what happens. And so we can have cues around how are we standing? Are we standing are we leaning back a little bit? Are we leaning forward? What's our connection to the ground? Where are we braced in our body? Where are we relaxed? You could even, I mean, for me, another very quick example was when I first started coaching, and I was working, it was a colleague, and she said, Karen, she said, I'm going into a meeting. I'm so nervous. Like, what should I do? And it was a hunch. I didn't have kind of a whole lot of basis for this other than from my yoga learning. As I said to her, we'll call her Jane. I said, Jane, I noticed that you're kind of going out to the world with your eyes. What about if you just relax your eyes and just go in with soft eyes? And she came back. So I gave her a cue, right? And she came back after, she said, oh my goodness, Karen, that my experience of the meeting was so different. So I think as coaches, expecting our clients to know versus actually being able to help them discover with those cues can be powerful.
Thank you, Karen.
Okay. All right. So how about you have an experience with this and you can then also take these cues away with you. So let me go back to sharing the screen and move this about. So this is where there's an invitation to have a coaching conversation. One of you will have a coaching conversation with a partner, and the other person, so one person will share and the other person will be the coach. And I asked you to identify a current challenge, problem, or issue you're dealing with. And you will not be required to share the problem. In fact, I'm going to ask you not to. So that's a really important piece, so that you can actually pay attention to the body. So all I'd like you to do is to give it a one-word label. And it can be a color, it can be a description for you. So it could be an emotion, it could be like gloomy, it could be give up, you know, any label, but that's all you're going to share. And then when you think about the issue, what are the emotions that come up? And what immediately happens in your muscle tension? What's the go-to with your body? What happens to your posture? And what are you aware of with your breathing? So if you haven't yet, if you could take a snapshot of this, because I'm going to keep going. Normally I would want to give you a few minutes to answer this, but I'm going to keep going and trust that you're going to be able to identify something. And I'll also give you a minute when you're in the room to actually just think about this a little bit more. So that's the first thing to do. And then if you could take a snapshot of this as well. So this is a framework, Mahmoud, this was what I was talking about, is having a way of helping clients orientate to parts of their body. So this is a framework for developing body awareness. And so if you could take a picture of this, and then what I'm going to ask you to do when you're in your breakout room is, as there's going to be one person who's going to say, my situation is gloomy and this is how I am. And I'm going to ask both of you to get up in the breakout rooms. And then for the person to actually notice what's going on in those areas with the help of their coach. So what's happening in the feet, connection to the floor and the ground. What's happening at the knees? Are they locked or relaxed? The pelvis, is it extending a little bit backwards, pushing forwards, or is it actually in a neutral position under the shoulders? What's happening in the lower back? And that will be very much connected to the pelvis. Is it arching or concave, or again, neutral? Torso, what's happening with the stomach and the chest? And this would include what's happening with breathing. With the shoulders, are the collarbones extending out and shoulder blades relaxing down, or are they actually hunching together? What's going on with the neck? Is there tension, or is it quite easy for the person to move their neck? And what's happening with the head? Forward, back, up and down. Arms, is there muscle tension, and is there a lot of tension in the arms, hands, and fingers, or are they actually relaxed? And the facial muscles, what's the degree of relaxation or tightness? And there's some cues there. So as the coach, you're going to have that in the background. So that's going to be, if you like, your cue card. For the person who's sharing their issue, you don't have to worry about this. So you're just going to share with your partner what you're noticing in terms of muscle tension, posture, and your breath. So for the person who's going to be coached, you'll share your label and response to the second point, and also if you can demonstrate that. And then the person who's coaching, make sure that you have your partner's permission, and then share possible observations. So if you notice that the person's holding tension in their jaw, you would offer that. You would say, I'm noticing that there seems to be quite a lot of tension in your jaw. It's my interpretation. It's never the truth. And I wonder what it would be like if you just released your jaw a little bit. Or your head's come up, you know, and what would it be like if you dropped your head a little bit? If while the person's standing up, if you see that they immediately do this, so I'm exaggerating, you would offer them like, what's it like if you actually open up? So you're just offering them cues to make some shifts. And once they've done that, and you've helped them with their breathing, ask them what effect the shifts have had on the issue and how they now perceive it and what's possible for them. Does that all make sense? Cool. So I'm gonna, the most important thing is that you go in with a mood of curiosity and interest and not expecting to get anywhere. And we're going to open the breakout rooms. I'm aware that we're probably going to be a little bit over time. So we're going to bring people back at 4 minutes past 2. And if you have to drop out, feel free to do so. And for those who are left in the room, please bring yourself back to the room so that we can just make sure that you're not feeling lonely.
If I may, Karen.
Yes.
Yes,
Hi, Mahmood. Thank you. So I think I just love the session in terms of the way you have demonstrated that how our body and mind are in sync and they are like pretty much part of one system. Because there was a shift definitely when we did this exercise, like the one which you made us do, the breathing exercise, there was definitely a shift in the muscle tension in the body. So I think that was a big takeaway for me from this session. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you very much. And I see +1. And that's what I meant, Ritu, in terms of the body being a shortcut. And actually, this isn't rocket science. If we attend to the body and we pay attention to the body, we can automatically shift our experience of things and our perception and even our mood. So lovely that you had that experience.
Thank you. Karen, I just have a quick question in terms of exercise. Somehow we couldn't get to do the exercise, so I just have a quick question here now. On your slide 13, where the part 2 of the exercise, wherein
Yes.
The second dot point, wherein that if you're comfortable, do so, demonstrate. So who is supposed to demonstrate this? Is it the coach or is it the client?
No, the client would show how they're holding it. So the client I was speaking about, for example, who said that she was lacking confidence, I asked her how she was experiencing it in her body, and she was demonstrating it. And then she was the one who shifted. I do want to make one point around that, which I think is really important. And Ritu, and that is that you are in it with your client. So when we work with the body, that we get up with our clients. It's not like we're observing our clients. While we might not be demonstrating the muscle tension, we want to be there with them. So we're alongside them. And that's an important piece.
Thank you.
Very good. So what I would like to do is, I'm very happy to stay on. I would like to officially close the session though, so that people who feel like, oh, I've got to get off and I want to be polite can go. And so I want to say a very big thank you to all of you who have attended. And I'm very happy to stay on the line to speak some more, to be in conversation. So And Mahmoud, a big thank you to you and Saham and the rest of the team.
Thank you so much, Karen, for this wonderful presentation. Thanks for everyone as well.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Steve.
Thank you. And see you everyone next Tuesday with CTA New Transformational Tuesday. Thank you so much. And see you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.